Mm. Great morning. Great morning. This is Master Nigel um, greeting you and just checking if I am live. Let me just make sure muted. And I think I'm good. Great. I'm experimenting with the times of my broadcast. It is now 9:10 a.m. I intended to have a interactive session today regarding a topic that's related to greatness. And that topic is identity and the importance that it is. So since I'm in my experimental phase, I will be experimenting and then I will do it again, either later today or tomorrow, but I will give people a chance to have more notice so that I can have some interaction and engagement. But this one is for me. I am practicing broadcasting every day so that I have no excuse, even with or without an audience. So with that said, I'm going to bless us in. Then I'm going to give some conversation about my background. Then I'm going to show a framework called the four realms, the four mindsets, which will help to deal with identity. And then I will open up the floor for interactivity. And those who are watching live can engage, and those who are watching the recording can also engage, and I will follow up on any comments on the interactive. So blessing in. I close my eyes and allow my mind to settle as I focus on my breathing. Invite those watching with me to do the same. Just breathing, releasing tension in the body, concerns in the mind, allowing things to settle, allowing anxiety, intention to release themselves as I surrender now and trust that there is a divine order that's taking place that is guiding my thoughts and my actions and behavior. I'm allowing the spirit of greatness to stream in and through me as I release my words into the internet, into the world, and allow it to be so. Amen. All right. So, just for those who have been following or yet to follow my story, is that I was born in England, but I grew up in Jamaica with my grandparents, and I came to London when I was about 10 years old in the 70s, and grew up there, went to school, studied engineering, and ended up in software engineering, working on aircrafts and telecommunications in the early 90s. Then came to America and went to Silicon Valley and operating in the Bay Area, and basically was a techie in building an infrastructure for what we now call the internet and all the applications thereon. So around the year 2000, I had a sort of epiphany, not really epiphany, a calling. I heard a voice calling me saying, "Nigel, well done. You have fixed the bug in the human computers." That was the bug that was called the Y2K bug. And now it's time for you to work on fixing the bug in the human computers. So if I said that wrong, I meant to say I fixed the bug in the technical computers, the human-made computers. And now it is time to find the bug in the God made human computer, which is the mind. And so I went off on a little adventure to discover the bug that is interfering with the human mind. And when the bug is interfering with the human mind, it causes the human mind to downgrade and start operating at less than the intended specification of its creator. And with this downgraded scenario, when we get a lot of what we call dysfunctions in the human beings. And dysfunctions are only there because of the bug that's interfering with the central control unit or the operating system called the human mind. And so what I discovered is that this bug is actually sitting in the language. And every session I promise to tell the viewers what the bug is at the end of, or near the end of my broadcast here, to encourage the viewer to stay paying attention and engaging with the session. Talking of sessions, I have my offerings. The thing that I actually do to make money is I offer greatness activation sessions, and I work with people who know in their hearts that they are great. They're designed to be great. But for some reason, maybe due to the bug that's interfering with their mind, they're not able to fulfill that potential. They know, oh, there's things I want to do, there's dreams I have, and for some reason it's just, it's not happening. But the dreams are big, and sometimes the dreams are so big that they're scary. And so my invitation is that if you'd like to have a complimentary session, because I can't guarantee I can work with everyone, but you'd like a complimentary session to see if we can work together, then you could go to greatnessactivation.com and we can take it from there. Meanwhile, back to my story. So Y2K, I discovered, I went off on this journey to discover the bug that was interfering with humans and preventing them from functioning at the high level that I've seen in my industry. You know, Steve Jobs, Bezos, Zuckerberg, all these guys, they're like performing at a very high level. And no, they have no limits. My favorite is Elon Musk. These beings are very high performing beings, and their thought process is just humongous. So what's up with the rest of us? I'm thinking, what's up with the rest of us? The answer is virus infection. And that virus infection started early during childhood. And as soon as the mind starts becoming infected through language, then it starts to downgrade. And once it downgrades from its highest level, it's the experience of life changes. Let me drink some water here. So in this session, the conversation is about identity. And if you're watching this broadcast, just type in the chat so I know you're there, and maybe you will help me. I function much better when I'm talking to a live person. So if you're there, just say hello, type in the chat and say I'm here, and then I can interact with you. And if you're watching the replay, you can do the same, because I will be following up with anyone that comments in the replay. Anyway, so where I discovered the bug, and the bug is actually a word. It's a 3-letter word, and I will reveal that word later on in the session. So keep watching, keep engaging. And basically what I found out is that when human beings their vision is the calling. They have dreams and aspirations. Like from childhood, they were inspired by something. And then there's this incoming noise called people's conversations, language. And this noise typically contains virus-infected words. And these virus-infected words basically interfere with the inner workings of the mind and either reverse it, makes it go in the opposite direction of what it was supposed to do, or actually make it dysfunctional. So the topic of today's session is identity. And does it really matter? Does identity matter? And how does it impact greatness? And given the period that we're in, the coronavirus period, where there's actually a physical virus that's interfering with the body temple and causing that to downgrade at least the respiratory system, and which could lead to death, etc. Does identity matter now? And what does identity have to do with it? And does it matter? And how can we use it? Let's see. Is there anyone in the Facebook area that's watching? Let me check, see if anyone's here. If you're here, just say I'm here or hello or something, and then I'll see. I'm also live on YouTube, and so if you're there also, you can comment or say something. Now, let me see. Does identity matter? Yes, it does. So let me just use a framework to explain the identity framework. So I'm going to share my screen and let's see if this works. Yes, in fact, I'm going to max it out. So I found this beautiful framework called the 4 Mindsets. And the top, when the mind is functioning at its best with what should I say, limited infection, very little infection, meaning there has been no programming language that has been limiting the mind and interfering with its natural processing. When the mind is in that state, it is called the state of flourishing. And that in the flourishing state, it functions the way it was designed to function. Effectively, the mind is literally an antenna to the spirit, and the spirit basically downloads information to the mind, just like how your computer may connect to the internet and it may download a new upgraded operating system, and that download itself changes the way the computer works, makes it work better, makes it work without any interference, etc. So that's the natural state of the mind. And when that's happening, the mind stays in an abundant mode. It can adopt the identity of the highest thing that it can imagine, which is its own creator. Can you imagine just imagining that you're the source, you're God? I am the Father, and the Father and I are one. I am God. Can you imagine that? And so there are beings on the planet who have imagined that and do imagine that and are still imagining that. And those are the guys, the beings who basically ruling the world right now. When I met these beings, they identify so closely with their creator, their source, that they behave like their creator, their source. They have power, they have access to wisdom, they operate effortlessly, they're universal, they're global, this is the ultimate state of mind, and that state of mind invites and invokes the ultimate identity. So now with more infection, as the mind becomes more infected with virus, infected thoughts or language, then it downgrades below the state of flourishing to the state which I call the state of striving. And in the state of striving, there's a memory of the greatness. There's a memory of all things being possible. There's a memory of flourishing. But it remains a memory. So I'm here showing where my mind is. My hand represents the memory of the greatness, which is the highest state. But here now I'm operating in what I think is possible. And because my mind has been infected with virus, I'm thinking with limitations. And I'm thinking, well, I got to make this happen. I must put in time and effort to make it happen. So the kind of identity that I adopt when I'm in the striving mode is related to ways that I can get things done. So I might, instead of seeing myself as God, where things are happening on my behalf, I now see myself as a professional where I make things happen. I'm a doctor. I heal people, illnesses. I'm a lawyer. I solve legal problems. I'm an architect. I create things and I design buildings. I'm an engineer. I create and design and solve problems and solutions. You see, so now in this state of striving, I see problems, I see issues, and I have a mindset that the identity that I must adopt to deal with it are to do with professional. Well, how do I profess? What do I profess that I can do? And it's usually very limited to the area that I've been focusing in all my life. So that is still very good. All these identities or professions that I am claiming in the state of striving is very useful. The next, and there's more. By the way, just to remind you, that this is all appears very theoretical at the moment, but it's actually really practical. The applications are very practical in terms of your business or your personal life, mainly in your business. For example, the people that operate in the striving, flourishing mode, they usually operate at the executive level, the CEO, the C office, the C-suite. And these people make decisions that affect not only their own lives, but the lives of the community and in many companies, the world. And therefore their identity is much bigger. If you're the president, who you are affects the world or definitely the community around you. If you're the king, your identity is necessary for the stability of your country, especially in times of crisis. So this is, again, the flourishing state. And then in the striving state, then it's essential that I step up and put on my professional coat and go out and deal with some of the problems that people are dealing with in these times of crisis. So why am I saying that? Because at greatnessactivation.com, I basically work with these two types of people and help them to develop, activate, unleash, amplify their identity, and that identity starts to activate certain capabilities so that they can get on with their intentions with much more speed, fun, grace, and ease. So if you'd like to experience some of this activation, then go to greatnessactivation.com. Meanwhile, back to the conversation about mindsets and how they affect my identity. Below the state of striving, there is a very popular mindset, which is called surviving. And the surviving mindset basically has a different set of identities than in the striving or the flourishing. In the surviving mindset, just to give you a sense of what a surviving mindset is, just imagine there's a plane loaded with people and it's flying across the Atlantic and it crashes and half the people die and half the people survive. Now, the people who survive, excuse me, drink some water here. The people who survive are thinking, wow, man, at least I'm alive. So the thing about survival is that it means not dead yet. So the plane crashed and I didn't die, but I'm surviving. why do I say that? Because with survival, you've got to keep working. You got to work all the time to stay alive. And as soon as you stop working, then you start to die. So one of my definition of surviving is not dead yet. I know this is a important and serious topic because this surviving state represents 80% plus of the population. And it's not to be, I'm not trying to be funny, let's put it like that. But it's the state of mind that is the result of massive amounts of virus infection in the mind. And that is basically being transferred from human to human and creating this viral state. It will be interesting to find out if anyone else recognizes this. I found that the people that were struggling and dealing with difficulties in life are in the state of survival. So, and in the state of survival, the virus word is basically, it's a high percentage of the language. Could be up to 50 to 60% of my language is virus infected thinking. So Nigel, can you give us an example of a virus infected person and how they think and how they talk, etc.? So the great news about all human beings, whichever state of mind they're in, is that they still have the DNA of greatness. The Creator only makes one type of being, and that type of being is called a great one. Now, the thing that causes a great one to downgrade, as I keep mentioning, is virus infection. And to the extent that the virus is infecting the human mind, then they will go from flourishing down to striving, and then there'll be a massive drop down to surviving. And in surviving, what that sounds like is the virus word is spoken a lot. So here's the virus word, not. Yes, I said it, N-O-T, N-O-T, not. So let me type that in the chat so that you can see it. The virus word equals N-O-T. Okay, so I'm going to send that out there. There you go. And that word, once it enters the mind, it starts to create limited thinking. Here's the classic limited thought. I do not know. I do not know. That word not changes my access to power, access to the divine. I'm not sure. That word creates a lack of confidence. I can't. The word can't is two words. I cannot. So if you notice, every time someone is speaking about a limitation, what they're actually doing is speaking about a possibility, and they're including, without their awareness, a limited word called not. So this limited word, not, is such a powerful word that it actually can cause, I call it the virus because it's contagious and it operates without awareness. And yes, I can become aware of it. And once I'm aware, then I can take caution to protect my mind from further infection. And also in the practices that I offer at my website, get back here, at greatnessactivation.com, I can engage in some practices that removes the virus and allows my mind to return to the highest states of flourishing, striving and flourishing as before. Now, what are some of the identities that a surviving mind adopts? Well, the main one that the surviving mind likes to adopt is the identity associated with the activity of surviving, which is called working, hard work. I'm working. I'm a worker. And so much so that people identify with this identity as worker, as in working class, that we tend to identify ourselves with, as a survivor, I tend to identify myself with what I do. And people will enforce it by saying, hey, Nigel, man, what do you do? And I'm like, I do I do talking, I do speaking, I do activation. And so then I'll identify myself by what I do. I'm a carpenter, I'm a bricklayer, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, I'm all these activities. And I then, the weirdest thing is the more I say that I am, is the more I adapt the identity of these things. And furthermore, people I've seen, observed that people actually think that their purpose is their identity, and their identity is what they do. And so, because what I can do can be varied, and what I do may change over time, then they think their purpose is changing. And in the school systems and many conversations, where I call it virus-infected conversation, the being is having their mind programmed with, what do I do? What shall I do? What shall I do next? How do I do this? And so when I look at the Google searches, the biggest type of inquiry is, how do I do something? And how do you create a Facebook page? How do you do this? How do you do that? Doing has become the identity of the survival mind. Now, as I mentioned, the survival mind actually represents a high degree of virus infection. And therefore, I would not recommend identifying with anything that I think, when I would, let's just say, I'd release the identity that I believe that I am when I'm operating in the survival mode. Now, there is a level below survival, we call it dying, and it's not really worth talking about as an identity, but it's there. It represents, this state of dying represents the highest level of virus infection. This is when the mind is so overwhelmed with virus that it literally decides that it's time to release the body. And when the body is being released, we call that dying, and we're basically returning dust to dust, ash to ashes, etc. And the spirit is being released back to the place from whence it came, the source. So there's not really much thinking going on in the state of dying. So that's why I really focus on the top 3 mindsets, which are flourishing, striving, surviving. So let's see, it's about 23 minutes. I would like to start concluding by saying identity matters. I found that identity, who I think I am, actually shapes what I think about and how I do something. So when I think I am the president, then what I think about is things pertaining to my presidency, the country, the economy, the defense, etc. When I think I am just a worker, then I think about, how am I going to get things done, and how much time do I have left to get this done, and how am I going to survive? If I don't work, how am I going to eat? And when I think when I think I'm a professional, I am a doctor, then I'm thinking I'm a study, and I need to know about my craft. I must conduct myself in a way that represents my profession. So my identity shapes the way that I think, the way I conduct myself, the actions that I take, the manner in which I execute. And there's a deeper level where identity will also activate capabilities that are dormant within me and actually can be awakened just by engaging with a certain identity. So in my sessions at greatnessactivation.com, I play with identity. And the three identities I like to play with the most are what I call the master, the royal, and the angels. These three identities are so powerful that they can activate capabilities deep in my psyche and my client's psyche and cause us to experience a higher level of greatness. So if you'd like to experience something like that or have a complimentary activational session, then go to greatnessactivation.com. And so in summary then, the four mindsets that are dominant as a result of the level of virus infection in the mind are flourishing, striving, surviving, and dying. The one that I highly recommend that I maintain is the state of flourishing. And then the next level that is very popular and encouraged by professional bodies, etc., is the state of striving. And the one that is really represents serious virus infection in the world is the state of surviving. And as we know, in the current corona climate, a lot of people are in this state of surviving, and they're more worried about how they're going to survive the coronavirus than the coronavirus itself. So if you'd like, again, as I said, if you'd like to experience your greatness being activated, meaning returning to flourishing, then I highly recommend going to greatnessactivation.com and scheduling a complimentary session, etc. And then we can determine from there how well we work together and whether we can work together, etc., etc. So this is Master Nigel winding down this broadcast. And if there's anyone out there who would like to interact or engage, you have any questions, maybe you joined late or you're watching the recording and you type some things in the chat and I will be able to respond either in the live session or in the next session or just generally in my review. So once again, thanks for viewing. This video will be available on my Facebook page and my YouTube channel at Greatness Activation. If you'd like to connect with me, go to greatnessactivation.com. And so now I would like to bless out and bring this broadcast to a conclusion. So I give thanks for the gift of technology. I give thanks for the ability to communicate, to connect. I give thanks for those who know in their hearts, in our hearts, my heart, that I'm one of the great ones, being called to a higher level of service here on earth, being called to make a massive beneficial difference, being called to assist humanity to elevate to a higher state of being called to restore the human temple to the state of flourishing. I'm giving thanks for this awareness that I am in that group and that I'm calling all my fellow great ones, awakened ones, enlightened ones to join me in the practice of activating and unleashing the greatness in human beings. So with that said, I know my words have been spoken into the universe and is affecting those who can hear and receive it. And I release it and let it be, and so it is. Amen. Okay, thanks everybody for watching. I will be back again very shortly. I may do another one today. I know this was a short notice, or I may do one tomorrow. Keep on watching.